Okay, what is a string? A string is just a sequence of characters, so just like you write John is going to school, okay, in your in your normal text editors, okay, or in your book, that's a string in terms of programming, okay. And in Python, if you want to write a string, then there are two ways to do this, okay. You could either enclose it in a single quote like here, or you could enclose it in a double quote, so it's up to you, but I like single quotes, okay. But there are instances when you're forced sometimes to use a double quote, okay. So now let's say this, okay, we want to write Python as a string, so all you do is just type Python and enclose it and this guy, then so if you want to, because we are doing this in Google Colab, if we want to run the syntax, we just hit on this arrow here and to run. So now you see exactly Python, okay, and the same thing here, so there's no difference. It's up to you. You can use whichever notation is comfortable, you are comfortable with, okay. But you can see that there are quotation marks around the string, okay, and you don't want that sometimes, okay. So if you don't want that quotation mark, you just use print, okay. Print, this is a function you use to display something on the console, okay, in Python. So whenever you want to display something, you write print. For example, like if we were using this spider, if I say write x is equal to 8, you see, you don't see 8, you don't see x is equal to 8, okay. So now if I want to see that value, then I have to say print x, you see, then you see. So print is just for that, okay. And so now let's see, so you could as well print a number, okay. So here we want to print 6, so so 6, and you can see that you don't need to enclose, because this is just a number, you don't need to enclose it in quotations for it to be printed, okay. Then you can treat strings as variables, okay. So let's say in this case we want to define a variable called a, okay. You can use any, well, I don't say you can use any name, okay. There are certain keywords that you cannot use, okay, and we will talk about those later. So let's say a is just a random variable, okay, and we want to assign this string to a. So we say a is equal to hello world. So okay, so if we want to print a, you just say print a, okay, and run. So when you run this, okay, it means a now is has a value of hello world, and you don't need to enclose, again, you don't need to enclose the variable a in a string, okay. Let's see, because I need to edit this, okay. So I'm going to open this in playground mode. I don't want to tamper with what I did earlier. So okay, so now let's say so here a has been printed, okay. So let's say as I was saying earlier, you don't need to enclose a in a quotation, okay. So if you were to do that, now let's see what happens. You don't see hello world again. What you see is a, because it means this is no longer a variable, it's now a, like it's now, say, a string called a, okay. So let's go back. Okay, so that's just that. And okay, so how do you know that a variable is a string, okay, or it's an integer or something, okay. Python has this keyword or this syntax called type. Okay, so if you want to know the type, okay, really as the name implies, so just just say type A, because I want to know the type of variable, okay, that A is. So you just print this. So it tells you, you see here, class string str, so that means A belongs to the class string. Okay, good. Then let's see. Okay, I think I did this before. So again, you can assign actual numbers to variables, okay, and you can print them straight away without enclosing them in quotations. Okay, so that's fine. Now let's go a bit deeper. Okay, now let's say you have two separate strings. Okay, these are my best strings. Rice, I love rice. Okay, so these are two different strings. Okay, but you want to we call this concatenation. Okay, oh, in fact this is wrong. Okay, don't worry, I just need to edit that. Okay, concatenated. Okay, good. Okay, so we the process of joining two different or two or more strings is called concatenation. Okay, so we want to concatenate I love and the rice. Okay, and so here, so we are doing this, but we want to assign this to a variable called string. We could give it any name. We could even say Chelsea. Okay, say our variable is called Chelsea. So good. So you see, so now you see, so this is bringing I love and rice together. Okay, but I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Okay, as you can see here, I left some space here. So let's say I didn't have any space there. Okay, so let's run it again. So you see now I love, so there's no space. So what this is actually telling you is that Python literally just joins the two variables. Okay, so if you want to format these variables in your own, to your liking, then you have to ensure that you do this before printing, because as soon as you tell Python to concatenate, it just literally brings them together. So that's something to note. Okay, but we could get the same outcome without adding them here directly. Okay, so we could assign I love to one variable. So let's say string 1. Again, it's just any name. Okay, and then let's say rice to another variable. Okay, string 2, and we could get a new string out of this, just by saying string 1 plus string 2, easily, and then we print it. So again, run it and you see the same result. Okay, however, you don't always need to use the plus sign to concatenate two strings. Okay, you could just bring them together, like side by side. Here, this is I love and this is rice, no sign between them. Run, and it's still happening. Okay, you could, let's see what happens when we do that. You see, so you don't need to leave, you could leave any amount of space that you want, but your outcome will be the same. So basically it's not taking into consideration this white space. Okay, and this is something to note again. Okay, the only space that it takes into consideration is what's enclosed by enclosed in the quotation symbols. So anything outside the quotation symbol, no. Okay, but now let's see. Okay, in this cell, we did say that you could assign the two substrings to, you know, to separate variables and display them. Okay, and here, you know, we have assigned string 1 already to I love, string 2 to rice. Okay, and now let's see if we can run, you know, we can concatenate this particular case without using the plus sign. Okay, now let's see what's happening. You know, it tells you that we can't. Okay, you know, because in fact this is a wrong syntax. And again, this, you know, this means I should explain a bit about error messages in Python. Okay, or error messages in Python are very informative. They, you know, they don't just tell you that something is wrong. You know, they tell you where it is, you know, where it went wrong, and also what went wrong. Okay, so here, okay, well, this may not be too informative because it's, you know, it's almost like we're doing it in the console. Okay, but it says that it's, you know, there's an error in line 1 basically, and you can see this is line 1 because each line, I mean, each line of code is numbered. Okay, so this is line 1, so it tells you there's an error in line 1. So even if we had let's say we, you know, we have another line here. Now let's see what happens. You see, it tells you exactly, and as soon as it encounters an error, it stops. It doesn't go further. So everything beyond that line doesn't get executed at all. So, you know, it didn't execute this line for us. And again, it tells you the type of error. Here it says syntax error, so that means you didn't get the syntax right. Okay, so this is wrong. So now let's see what will happen if we put a plus sign. It's happening. So for me, I would say, as a rule of thumb, always use plus. Okay, don't risk it. Good. Now you can also concatenate strings and numbers. Okay, so we already have A here. I think we have A defined as hello world, I think, and we have B. B is defined as, you know, B is equal to 4. In fact, you know, this is something again I wanted to note. Okay, you know, when you define a variable and assign a value to that variable, okay, it's like a unique identification. Okay, until you assign a new value to that variable, or until you delete that variable or reset the runtime, that variable will always have that value. You would like to view this as a postal system, okay, as an address. So let's say ABJ lives at this number. Okay, so Python always assumes that, oh, ABJ is to this. Okay, so as long as you don't tell Python that, oh, ABJ has moved, okay, Python will always associate ABJ with that address. So it's the same thing here. So now let's see if we can get something. Again, there's an error here, okay, and let's see what we got wrong. Okay, and you know, it's also saying that, you know, there's an error in this line. In fact, you see this arrow here pointing to that line, so it tells you, oh, this is the line that you got wrong, okay, or that something went wrong from. Okay, and then it's saying what type of error is a type error, so which means you got the type of the variable wrong. Okay, must be str, meaning must be string, not int. So which means the value we have supplied is not a string, but it's an integer. Okay, and with this, you know, this is something you can definitely start with and say, okay, now let's see how we can debug this code. Debugging means find the problem. Okay, so if we look at these variables here, there are 3 variables. We have variables C, A, and B. C is a new variable. Okay, we didn't define it before, so the problem is definitely not from C. Okay, so it's from A and B. A again, we know, so you can even see, if you just place your mouse on A, you see that hint. It's, you see str column A, hello world. It means A is a string, okay, and its value is hello world. Okay, so that is very good. Okay, so now you want to, so that tells us it's not C, it's not A, so it's B, right? This reminds me of a guy. He wasn't too bright in Kenema, and this guy was in, I think, JSS3 in the Becker class, and someone, he went to this extra lesson, and the tutor asked him, a multiple choice question. I think it was A or B or something, and he said, "Iyera A, aya B." So meaning, if it's not A, it's B. Okay, and that's the same thing here. We know it's not C, it's not A, so definitely it's B. But you can confirm here. Okay, now if you take a look here, just hover your just place your cursor on B. You can see that int B, so B is an integer. Okay, and what this is saying is that you cannot concatenate a string and an integer. Okay, you cannot concatenate, you can only concatenate two strings. Okay, so if you want to concatenate a string and an integer or a float, then you have to convert it to a string. They say birds of a feather flock together, right? So that is it. So now then so let's see if that will solve the problem. So what we're doing here now is we have A, but we are converting B to string. Okay, and that's so easy. So just say str B, because B is a variable. And again, if you hover your mouse over that syntax str, Colab defines what str does. So it says create a new string object from the given object. So that just tells you that this is what that function does. Okay, so we do it now. We have it because A is what? Hello world, and B is 4. So you see, so hello world 4. So let's say if we want a space between hello world and 4, then what we have to do is we have to insert a space, right, between hello world, or between world and 4. So what you do is just, you see, put this white space here. So just an empty an empty enclosure basically, and that should do it. So you see, so you're now saying A, which is hello world, plus 1 space plus B. So if you were to increase this, then the same thing happens here. So it's that simple, easy peasy. Okay, but there is a way around this. Okay, you don't always have to convert numbers to, well, you don't have to explicitly convert these numbers to strings. Okay, Python has an inbuilt functionality, I would say, for that. Okay, so what you have to do is there's this function called format. Okay, so you just format it. Okay, to explain this, let me use an example. Okay, so let's say we have this statement. This is a statement. Say I have two daughters who are 2 and 10 years old. Okay, so let's say we want to write this, we want to display this. Okay, just this one. So let me add code here. So print, okay, I hit that cell. Okay, where am I? Okay, good. So good. Okay, so if we were to display this, it's simple. Okay, But that's simple. But now let's assume that we are running let's assume we are executing this statement for different people. Let's say the people on this call. Okay, which means as long as we are executing this statement for different people, it means that the number of daughters will change, right? Their ages will change as well. For some people it will just say 0. Okay, and in that case, you don't want to have to edit the entire sentence. Okay, in fact, let's say, assuming you had already developed an application that is packaged, and you're not even there when the user or your client is using it. Okay, so you want to design this statement in such a way that it can be executed automatically. You don't need to physically edit the sentence. So what you do is, okay, let me delete this. So you use placeholders. Okay, so the values that might change are this. Okay, the number of daughters and their ages. So 2 to 10. Okay, so you write the same sentence here, I have, but instead of putting the actual number, you just put a placeholder. It's like using a variable, right? Say A. So A can be any number, but you don't want to put A, because if you put A, then Python will interpret it as as a string. So it will just say I have A daughters and stuff like that. You don't want that. So but when you put this placeholder, then Python knows that, oh, this is a placeholder and it can take any value. So now we have all these as placeholders, and you print. So instead of just saying print text, because normally the way we would do this would be okay, let's see. Okay, the way we would do this would be print text. Okay, that's what so you see, so the first print without any formatting will just give you text, because that tells Python that, oh, this is an actual character, it's not a placeholder. Okay, but if you want to force Python to execute, to interpret these as placeholders, then use this format. Okay, so you say text, which is the name of the variable, dot format. Okay, and you just put the value. So this corresponds to this, the second corresponds to the second placeholder, and the third corresponds to that. So with this you can change, you can change this. You see 8, 9, 10. So assuming this was part of a function, then it'd be easy for you. Okay, that's fine. Then you can as well use variables to specify these values. Okay, you don't have to put the actual values here. So, but this is simple, because this is, you just define variables. It's like substitution, right? So instead of 8, 9, 10, you just put the values of these variables. So so all you have to do is, so now let's say you change this. Good. So this remains intact, and this is good sometimes, if you're writing a function and you don't want the user seeing the code, or you don't want them to interact with the code. So you just you enclose this in a function, and all the user sees is will be these variables. Okay, and that's fine. Okay, now let's go a bit deeper. Okay, you can access the individual characters in a string. Okay, because a string is just an array. Okay, so like if we say okay, so let's say y is equal to indolo. Okay, good. So indolo, so y here, okay, it's it's an array. Okay, so each element, we can actually access each element in Y. Okay, but the one thing I would like you to note here is that especially for those who have used MATLAB before, okay, and Python is weird. It's a weird language in the sense that I don't like the way it handles arrays. I'll say this, and MATLAB users won't be surprised that I'm saying that. In MATLAB, for example, okay, if you have a 5-element array or a vector, or or a matrix, for example, or let's say a vector in this case, the indices of the elements of that vector or that array start from 1. So if you say element 1, you actually mean the first element. Okay, if you say element 2, you mean the second. In Python, however, they start from 0. Okay, so if you want the first element, it's element 0. If you want the second, it's element 1. So it's n-1. So just so you know that. Okay, so now let's say we have this string. Okay, sample string. Okay, we could give it any name. Okay, so this sample string, we have named it We Own Python Club. Okay, so the first thing you can deduce from this is you can calculate the length, how many elements are in this string. Okay, so and the syntax you use is just len. How simple is that? That's so nice. So instead of, it's just it's synonymous to length. Okay, so it's len. So, and if you put your cursor on len, you see that Python defines what len does. You can see return the number of items in a container. So in this case, the container is your string, is sample string. Okay, so that is it. So in this case, that is it. And you can actually print the number of characters. Okay, so let's see. So let's run this. So this means, because this first print statement is this second is this one. Okay, so the number of elements here, L, that we calculated, L, is 19. Okay, and one thing you should notice that it counts even the white space. Okay, so it's not just letters or stuff. So now if I was to, okay, let me just put 1. Okay, good. Now if I was to run this, you'll see that it's 18 because I've deleted that extra white space. Okay, now so now you know how to access how to deduce the number of elements. Okay, and you can as well access particular elements. So let's say we want to access the first element, so you just write the name of the variable and say use square bracket. Again, this is in contrast to what obtains in MATLAB. In MATLAB, you don't use square brackets, you use like parentheses. Okay, the normal brackets that like these ones. Okay, so here you use parentheses, and as I said earlier, the counting starts from 0. So if we want the first element, we just say 0. That is it. So, and you can see here the first element is W, so it's there. So if we want, say I need to connect my external keypad. Okay, so let's say we want the fourth element. Okay, well, that's not actually the fourth element, as you can see, and this is something you should keep in mind. Okay, because as I told you, it's n-1. Okay, say if you say element 0, then you mean the first element. Okay, so n-1, n+1 if you're going the other way. So which means if I want, say, the first element, I look for element 0. Okay, but if I put 0, for example, which means I am getting the 0 plus 1 element. That's weird. That's why I don't like it. So for here we've put 4, which means we're getting the 5th element. or the fifth character. Okay, that is it. So in the code above we could tell that okay, so that is 1. Okay, and we have, let me put 0 again. Okay, so we go back to where we were. Okay, here you can see that we have used 2 print statements, right? Print print char 19 and w. Okay, but we could actually tell Python to print, to do everything on one line, okay, or with one print statement. Okay, and this is where you have to pay attention. Well, not too much. Okay, so good. Okay, so you are definitely familiar with this. Okay, just use one print statement, but concatenate. Use your imagination. Say we want to have, say, number of characters is equal to, so instead of putting the actual number of characters here, we use a placeholder as we learned earlier. So number of characters equal to this, and character 1 equals this. Again, we put a placeholder. Okay, dot format as we learned earlier, and put the values. So here L, the number of characters is defined by this variable here, L, and the number of characters is defined by char, and this is here. So, and this is what you get. Okay, this is the outcome. Okay, now let's say we don't want that. Okay, let's say we want to display this in this form. Okay, say number of characters here, character 1 here, like on 2 different lines. Okay, but we want to use only one print statement. Okay, that again we can do easily, but here it's a bit different. Okay, so again you start number of characters dot column just here. The only difference here is instead of 19 you put the placeholder, but because you want the next sequence to start on a new line, you put the syntax /n. Okay, so /n tells Python that the next thing should start on the next line. Easy. So you just put /n character 1 placeholder, and again the same thing. Okay, and you run this. This is what you get. Okay, now let's see if we leave some space between the n and the character and see what happens again. So you see, that tells you that because this space is enclosed in this quotation, it is recognized by Python. Okay, so it's up to you. Okay, now this is getting interesting. Okay, so let's say we don't like the appearance at all. Okay, because maybe it's not properly aligned. Okay, so let's say we want to shift this column here to be in the same line with this column, so it's properly aligned. Okay, what do we do? Okay, and this is a bit interesting. Okay, because it's your first real programming problem. Okay, now let's think this through. Okay, everything is the same. The only difference here is that this guy has been shifted. Okay, and when you shift this, you move this guy here, there will be lots of white spaces between 1 and this now. So instead of no white space or this small white space, there'll be a lot of white spaces. So if only we knew how many white spaces were required, then that'll be easy. Okay, we don't know, so what we do is we set out to know how many white spaces. Okay, so how do you know the number of white spaces? Again, it's easy. Just subtract. Okay, because all you want is this guy to be in line with this guy. Okay, so if you subtract the number of characters in this guy up to here, get the number of characters up to this guy and subtract this from this, then you know exactly how many white spaces you need to get to that point. And that's what we are doing here. So line 1, we get the number of characters here. We already know the syntax. Get the number of characters in this guy. We know. You subtract them. Again, we know. So we assign this to a new variable called L. Okay. And what do we do next? We just print this. Okay. But just not like that. Okay. Now we want to insert extra white spaces. Okay. Or extra white space. Actually, extra white space in this case between 1 and this guy. Okay, so again, as we did earlier, you just put a placeholder between 1 and this guy format. So this L corresponds to this value we know now, and now this one corresponds to the white space. Okay, so this is again interesting and you should take note. Okay, so now how do you get a certain number of white spaces? Let me use that grammar, assuming it's correct. Okay, so you just get one white space and multiply it by the number of white spaces you want. It's that simple. Okay, so so we know the number of white spaces we need is L, so multiply L by this. Okay, so that will give us the number of white spaces we need here, and then put char 1 is just the number of characters, I mean the value of character 1, which we had calculated earlier on from here, so you don't need to calculate it again. So what we do is just run. We run and we have what we want, or what we wanted. It's that easy. Okay, let me just show you how to to play with that multiplication. So let's say print, we could actually get, so let's say q is equal to 8 times u. Let's say we want to have lots of u's, right? I need to print this. Okay, print q, yeah, because I had so you see, actually you might not need that if you just enter that. Yeah, good. So you see, so that's fine anyway. So you see, and this is really good, right? This is interesting. So that, so let's assume we wanted to format with this. See, then you have lots of this. So let's say we wanted to format, you see where I'm heading with this. So this means you can format text, you can format display from your code really nicely. Okay, so you see, now let's see, you can actually mix them up. So you see, nice. Okay, so enough with that. Okay, this is getting, so you see, so you could play around with that. Okay, good. So now let's say we already know now that you can access characters in certain positions, right? You could as well extract, say, a substring from that string. Okay, say you want a set of characters between in a certain range. Okay, and this is important because sometimes you want to compare certain variables or certain inputs. Okay, let's say someone is you have written like a code for an application, but you want the input file, let's say, and this application needs to use some data, okay, data from some source, okay, but you want the file that contains the data to be an Excel file because maybe that's what you have written your code for, and you want to return an error, or you want to tell the user that when they pass say a CSV file. Okay, so easily you could use this technique to to determine, say, okay, let's see, because maybe CSV files are just .csv, so you just need to know what the last 3 strings are. So if the last three strings are CSV, then you tell the person that no, we don't want CSV files, we want Excel files. So you see, so that's one application. Okay, so now let's say we want to access the string in this range, okay, range 4 to 8, okay. And just to reiterate, the numbers you specify here are indices, okay. Indices are just the position of the variable in the string, okay, and these positions are Python positions, okay, not the actual positions. So for example, if you put here 0, it means Python 0, okay, or if you put 1, it means it's not the first character at all, it's Python position 1, which is the second character. So just to know. So here we want characters, I mean position, the substring defined by this range 4 to 8, okay. So it means, okay, characters from index 4 included. And what this means is that when you specify the range in this form, then when Python extracts this value, there's the substrings, it includes, okay, so this is included, the beginning of the range is always included, but the end of the range is not included at all. So what Python does is that it extracts the elements between, well, from position 4, from index 4 to index 7, okay, not 8. So always the end, the upper bound or the upper index is not included, okay. So I have also said that, so this is equivalent to characters 5 to 8. So when I say characters 5, when I say character number, I mean the actual position. So for example, if we look at given, okay, G is character 1, but in terms of index, it's index 0, okay. So 4 to 8 means it will extract, characters 5 to character 8. So if you run this, so you see, so bear in mind our original string is we own Python club, okay. So if you start counting, this is 1 2 3 4, you see, 5 6 7 8. So 5 to 8, so that's why we have 1 and space, okay. Now let's say we want this notation, okay. So let's say we actually want to extract from index 0 to index 3, okay. So you could write it in this format. You don't need to specify 0. So Python automatically understands that, okay, meaning from the beginning to index 3, okay. Again, index 3 is excluded, so it's actually taking from index 0 to index 2, which in character position wise is character 1 to character 3. And I'm sure you can see a pattern here. I would leave it to you to deduce what the pattern is, okay. That's part of your exercise. Okay, so now let's see. Now let's say again we want, okay, we can run this so you see exactly what the answer will be. So you see, we, because it's just saying from character 1 to character 3, so we dash, okay. So let's say in this case we want 14 column to end, okay. So 14 column to end meaning from index 14 to the end, to the last one. Again, for this one we already know that it always includes the start of the range. So it's from index 14, which is character 15. So you add 1, okay. So you just add 1 to the lower range, finish. So like here, you see, so 5 to 8, so it just means it's from character 5 because it's 4 plus 1 5 to 8, so you leave this fixed. That's the pattern. Okay, so again, if you run this, okay, now, okay, there is an error. Oh yeah, I've been pasting a lot. Yeah, where did I get? Okay, hold on. Okay. I actually pasted something. I don't know what okay, so let's run. So you see, so from here to the end, okay, again, there is also another variation between Python arrays or strings and MATLAB. So for Python, you can actually use negative indexing. Okay, use negative indexing. Okay, so however, if you use negative indexing means you're starting from the right. Okay, positive means we're starting here. Okay, so if this is the word in question or the string in question, so positive index means we start from this end, negative index means we start from here, and the counting starts at -1, not 1, not 0. So for example, if we say sample string -1, it means we want the last element, basically. If we say sample string -3, it means the third element from the right. So what minus is it? -1, -2, -3. And this is also good, because sometimes like the example I used earlier for the CSV, you're only interested in the maybe last 3 substring. The last 3, the substring defined by the last 3 elements. Okay, so in that case, you don't need to use positive indexing, because you actually don't need to know the entire the total length of the string. Because let's say someone is using say a name of a file, okay, and we all know the name of a file. People can name their files in different ways. Okay, you don't want to start counting, determining the length of that string, so you could just take the last 3, finish, you're fine. So if the last 3 is not CSV, you don't care what the rest are. Okay, so again, the same thing. So if we say -4 column, it means from -4 to